Hey guys, welcome to the Loot Heroes Revival. Thanks for being here and taking some time and attention to listen to us talk. First off, apologies. I had actually recorded this with my friend Ed, how's Laristar, and Kaká, our native Portuguese buddy here in the chat as well, and Trusty Mod, aka the Sales Bot. But like a dunce, I recorded it and I had my headphones plugged in. And of course, my Mac doesn't like that, so I got no sound. So, what you've got here is I'm going to just do a summary and a little bit of a recap of our conversation. So, unfortunately, you just got my dull American voice, none of that beautiful French accent or Portuguese in the background as well. We had some good conversation, but this is going to be the first of many community conversations, AMAs, Twitter Spaces, Discord stages, wherever you want to find us. But one of the intentions that we've got here is to really revitalize the project. So the first thing I want to talk about is the state of the project. Where is Loot Heroes right now? Well, if you guys have been paying attention to the nothingness that's out there, basically it's been very slow going. So first off, the founders, H, E, R, and O, well, mainly just H, E, and R, are going to be stepping away for good. So no real begrudging to them. I mean, certainly have qualms with kind of the way it was handled, but the mint didn't go as expected, and because of that, they really just weren't able to devote the time and resources necessary to make this a success. That's where Ed and I are going to step in. I'm taking over the project. Ed's going to be certainly right there beside me helping out, House Laristar. And O is still willing to do more art for us as well. So, a lot of the things that happened post Mint was really just on the shoulders of one guy with R trying to do tremendous work and pull things together. But between his own IRL responsibilities or Web 2 responsibilities and life taking over, really just wasn't enough time and attention to be had for the project. So after many conversations that I had had behind the scenes with these guys, they've been gracious to hand over the project. And one of the things to remember here too is that, the word rug is thrown around a whole lot. This wasn't a rug, right? They didn't run away with the money. They didn't. There's still a little bit of treasury that we can use on development. Not a tremendous amount. We didn't really have a huge mint, but there's still some stuff there, and I was pleased to see that they didn't actually abscond with that. And so we're going to be able to utilize some of the work that they've done. And many of you guys know there's still a working game, a functional game, Loot Heroes, the Quadra, and it's actually really fun to play. Many other projects would love to have the development that we've had so far to be able to have something that they can actually ship out to their communities and have some fun with it. So we're in a decent place. I wouldn't say a great place. We're in a decent place. But the big pull here is going to be, how do we re-engage our community? And then how do we take something that we have fun with, and then will other people have fun with it too in the Web3 community, gamers in general? Can we drive engagement from that perspective? And then can we get to a place where we can actually generate some revenue? So we're going to unpack that a bit. So I've got a team behind me. I put together a team of developers that's going to be taking over. We're actually in that transition process right now. So I don't want to get people too excited that stuff's going to happen like tomorrow. We're going through that process of code review, figuring out where certain states of affairs were. If you've been on the lootheroes.io website recently, you'll have noticed that a lot of things have kind of degraded. That really hasn't been because of the work that R did, but more so certain things behind the scenes, not to get too technical, kind of got unplugged. We basically just need to replug them back in. So that's pretty straightforward. So things like staking, unstaking your hero, we'll be able to do that. For many of us that are heroes were on Expedition, they've sort of been in a perma-stake mode, which isn't good. We want to be able to provide people access to actually get their NFTs in and out of the protocol. So that's one of the first things. But if you go to lootheroes.io /dungeon, you can actually go and you can play the game. So the game does work. It's a functional game, but one of the things that we need to progress forward on, and this is where R was close, was being able to have the connectivity of the NFTs in your wallet or those that you've staked, and for the game to actually read that. So right now, if you go and you play, it's basically just a starter deck of heroes that are there for you that you can play in the Quadra. That's fine, and it's actually something that we can showcase to other people, sure, but we really need to be able to connect our NFTs in there. That's going to be the big next step. And then fixing a couple of other little things that developers are working on there too. Big ones coming up with, the PvE game and the PvP side of it from that standpoint. So that will be a work in progress, and that's certainly where, the budget is going to go, is going to be to fund the development of it. And once we have that, then what we can start to do is to say, okay, now we've got this semi-finished product, not even really close to finished from where I want it to be, but at least finished enough where we can do something with it. So what's next from there? Well, the big thing is we need to figure out how we can get people re-engaged. Well, how can we get our community re-engaged? Okay, we've got the PvP side of things, but we also have the PvE side of things, right? So the player versus environment. That's where we have the dungeons that people can pass through. What if, and this is some of the things that we chatted about with the three of us earlier, we had a tournament, for example, and that's something that I'd be happy to finance myself and just fork over some, purse, let's say, for people that were joining the tournament. We were kind of workshopping this idea in different, ways to set this up, but it could be something just very simply to say, okay, based off of the number of people that we get that actually sign up and engage in this tournament, there's going to be some purse, let's call it a few $100s. Maybe if we get a lot of people, it could be thousands of dollars, right? And people will compete over a week-long PvE type of event. You'll have energy just like the game is set up right now. You can pass through this PvE experience. You've got a week-long time to accrue loot as you complete levels in the dungeon. The person who accrues the highest loot goes through the most levels of the dungeon in that time. Well, they'd be the overall winner, and they'd win the largest portion of that purse. We could have a second and a third place winner. And that would be a way that I think in the short run, we might be able to re-engage people here in the community. I don't know how many people are actually still actively checking the Discord. I shouldn't even say actively, but even just sporadically checking the Discord. So that's going to be an element of getting people re-engaged on that front. But once we've actually rebuilt the game a bit, got it to a place where your NFTs are connected, you can play the PvE game. Then the next step from there would be on the PvP side too. And that actually is an area where R said that he was very, very close. So I'm keen to see what's been developed there, where that's at, and where we can take it. If those two elements are very close to completion, and I have expectations that they are, then there really isn't a tremendous amount of development we need right now. And if we can get to that place, then the ideas that I've got around how to generate revenue would be, okay, how do we take this to other members of the Web3 community? How do we get them to play Loot Heroes, have fun with the Quadra? We know it's a very simple game to understand. I mean, it's a 4x4 grid. It's like a mini chessboard. You have your heroes, which have 4 cardinal points, up, down, left, right. They've got power rankings, and essentially you just flip the numbers. A higher number flips a lower number. And obviously there's some more things beyond that too. You guys know if you've played the game. There's a little bit more depth, but at a very high level, that's it. Very simple game to understand. So I always like to say it's easy to play and it's hard to master, which is what you want to have. You want to have enough dynamics, enough things that can change and be malleable to have strategy into the game, but it should also be very easy and very intuitive to understand. So with that, what we can do is, rather than having all these poker games, because I'm sure you see every project tries to have community engagement, keep people involved with poker weekly, monthly. Well, that's tough, and that starts to die out, and you have maybe just a couple people that are playing poker here and there. So what came next? Well, they said, okay, let's do cross collaborations across 5 or 10 or 15 different communities. we'll have a big poker event. Well, that works. Okay, you get maybe 50 people plus that actually come and play poker. But how much time do we really want to spend playing poker? A couple hours, right? I mean, it can be pretty long. So maybe a better way to do it would be, hey, give your users, your holders, an experience where they can actually have fun doing something else together. They can play a game, they can be competitive. Communities can put different rewards behind this as well for people that engage and actually win. And so, what we might want to do early on is just kind of give away an experience where people can come in and they don't even need to have an NFT to play the game. They can just literally have like a custom room where their communities can come and play in the Quadra, and they can get involved and they get some experience behind it. And if we're also simultaneously doing these tournaments for our own holders where people are winning real money, hundreds of dollars, right? If we've only got, maybe a couple dozen people that are playing right now, fine. But at least there's something there where they say, hey, this is a reason to maybe engage. This is a fun experience. If people enjoy the game, well, heck, they might want to buy an NFT, or maybe they just want to get more involved and we start to develop some of these, instead of one-off type of things, we have larger events. And so there we could have maybe a PvP event where now, let's say the purse is $1,000 or $2,000. Okay, you need to be a holder to get access to the event, or maybe one of the other communities wants to kick in as well, get their people access to the event, but they don't have an NFT. Well, maybe they have to buy in. And the other aspect that we didn't talk about yet is the massive amount of loot that all of us have. I probably have like over 1 million loot for how long I've been staked. Well, that's a problem, but it's also something that we need to provide value to people who've got loot. Well, what if one of the entries that you have to get into a tournament is by having loot? So it'll be free to holders because it costs loot to get entry into a tournament for real money, but you guys have tons of loot because you've been staking your heroes forever because we haven't been able to unstake them for the past couple months. So this solves two of our problems: is how do we provide a sink to the loot economy, and then how do we provide value to loot for people who have it, and then for people who want to have it, right? Because that would be the access point to get into these PvE or PvP tournaments where now people are actually buying in for loot, and they'd have to really do it through us, from a project standpoint. So this model is one that's really tried and true and tested in the eSports world, and there's a lot of appetite for that. We just need to make sure, number one, do people enjoy playing the game, right? Do they enjoy playing Loot Heroes? Do they have fun playing in the Quadra? Is it easy to understand? Can they communicate it to their communities? And we might even need to do some like show and tell type thing in the Web3 space here, where we have our own events, and then we're starting to market it out and show other people, incorporate them, bring them in. And this is where is my kind of plea back to the community to say, hey, listen, I'm here, Ed's here, we're going to build, and we've got developers that are going to take us to a state where we can actually have a marketable product. But it's going to take a family, right? It's going to take a village to be able to really pull this thing out of the gutter, because that's kind of where we're at, right? We all know in Web3, the hot new thing is what's going to attract people. Like you look at the Heist, that's a really attractive project right now. People are out there, they're playing basically a staking game where it's an idler and there's some gamification to it. It's got a nice, slick UI. It's very easy and friendly. You can understand it. You just go to these 3 or 4 different locations on the map and boom, you start earning this Nana currency, right? Well, that's a very easy to understand, easy to execute strategy, and people are excited behind it. Well, we could do, our game is nowhere similar to what they're doing. It's a lot more of an actual game, but it's very easy to understand. People can play it very quickly. It's not time consuming. You can do a match in less than 5 minutes when it comes to PvP stuff as well. So there's different elements that we can work on and we can flex that we can use within our own community. That's where we need to start first, is to re-engage our own community and then find ways that once we've done that, we can reach back out to other communities and start to bring them into the fold. One here, one there, start to build slowly from that standpoint. So that's a lot of what I wanted to go through. The main thrust of our conversation was really around where is the state of the project? Well, most of the game is to where we need it to be to do some baby steps. Then there's some bigger iterations that we want to take from there. But really, short of me, cutting a check personally and really funding this stuff myself, I'd much rather get to a place where I know that the community is engaged. We've got a product that is marketable, people care about it, and then we can start to have some revenue generation. Then I'd be much more inclined to do something like that too. Some of the other things that I'm thinking about are, in line to recruiting. We talked a little bit about recruiting in our conversation. I don't want to go too far down that path right now, but there's 1,150 Genesis heroes. Those are the people that I care about right now as the holders, trying to return value to us. And what I don't want to do, and Ed made a good point about this as well, is not to flood the economy with recruiting. So some of those mechanics are going to have to change. They're going to have to be malleable. And we really want to balance recruiting with bringing in new people into our community. So the idea would be that nobody really wants to sell their Gen Zero Loot Hero NFT, right? Because like we talked about from the get-go, and the reason why they were so attractive, all of the future iterations of new people coming into the game, if they're going to need or want the NFTs to play, well, that's going to come from our own economy where we're actually recruiting and, building those new assets. So why would anybody actually want an NFT to play the game, right? This is another thing that we can get into really briefly. Well, if you think to the tournament, we're going to have to do something to keep a level playing field so we don't disenfranchise new people that are coming in. If we had it where you can use your current NFTs with equipped gear or gear that you burned in your NFT, then certain people like myself and a few other big holders, we're going to have a massive advantage over other people. My characters are going to be so much more powerful. Somebody new is going to come in. How is that fair that if we're playing for $1,000 or something, that they have no chance in beating us? Well, what we can do, and this is another idea for a loot sync, is we can either, number one, have some of these tournaments where you just can't use NFTs and it's kind of a starter deck type tournament. Or number two, we have sort of a hybrid where you can use NFTs that you own, as you should be able to. And then for people that are coming in that don't have the NFTs, certainly they'll get a starter deck, but they can use loot to purchase gear that they can play in that tournament with. Now, this is important. That gear would not be an NFT. So it's not like they're buying NFTs. What they're doing is they're buying an asset to just compete in that one tournament. And that gear might be an epic helm that gives them, +2 on the top slot. Well, now they're going to be more competitive and they can actually use loot. So this gives more value to loot. And we might have an area where they can actually go and they can buy it, just like you can buy another token, like you can buy Nana inside the heist and you can use it for different stuff there too. So we need to create some utility around that. We need a sync to get rid of some of the loot that's in the system. And then we need to think about how to balance new entrants coming in with also not disenfranchising our own holders to say, hey, listen, I've got these assets. What do I do with them there too? So there's definitely challenges that are in front of us. But right now, the big things are we're going to go slow. We have a plan for what needs to be built. We're very close to executing upon that. We have the right developers in place that are going to execute upon that as well. And then from there, we need to figure out, okay, how do we bridge that gap to revenue generation? We got to start with our own community, building engagement there. And then we branch out and we start to build out engagement with other communities from that standpoint. So that's basically it, guys. I don't want to run too long-winded here. I've probably been talking for about 20 minutes already. I'm going to try and do many, many more of these. So I want to engage you all. I certainly want to have more feedback from you guys too. This isn't a DAO, but I'm open to all kinds of different feedback and conversations. I want to incorporate good ideas. And so I would love to see more engagement on this front. I will try and hold this, let's say on a weekly basis, depending on the level of engagement we get. And I think the more we do it, the more engagement we're going to get there too. So I'm certainly committed to that. You guys know that I've been a big believer of Loot Heroes from the get-go, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of you guys around here.